I'm Chris, Jim, Murdoch, Mr. Murdoch, Mr. M, Brother Chris. You might know me different ways depending on where you know me from. But I'm here for our reverse engineered journey through the wonderful world of piano music. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll play something and then I'll break down what I did so that you can build up to whatever level you're at, whether it's all the way to where I was playing at the beginning, or whether it's somewhere along the way, and the rest of it can be a preview for later, a preview of what you can learn to do, because any skill can be learned by God's grace and with practice. All right, dear Jesus, thank you, Lord, for this time to sharpen the music skills that you've given us, and help us, Lord, to use them and our lives in general, in total, in everything, for your glory, and yours alone, in Jesus' name. All right. Listen. On a twisting dead-end road, in a run-down apartment she lay, as she shivered sick and cold. She looked out a small window that day. There was nothing to see but the blank wall next door, and the branch of a beautiful vine. The branch clung to the wall, but the leaves started falling in the chill of the cold winter time. She said, if that last leaf falls from the vine, then I'll know it's the end of my time. But if that leaf can hold on to the cold and the snow, then a young girl like me can still make it. I know if that one tiny leaf can survive, then I know that somehow so can I. They'll all say there's no hope, nobody believes, but I'm keeping my eyes on that very last leaf. We won't go into the second verse right now. It's a metaphor, really. You might say a parable or an allegory. Just like the girl in the song is watching the last leaf of that vine, and she doesn't think she'll be able to make it if that leaf can't. Of course, she will be able to, regardless of the leaf, but watching that leaf is helping her to hold on to hope. She figures if that leaf can make it, so can she. And sometimes spiritually, those of us who know Jesus Christ, sometimes we go through times when we feel like maybe all we've got left is just that one leaf. We're struggling, but we can't give up. Somebody else could be watching and saying, well, if they can make it, so can I. Spiritually. Okay, so now as far as the musical aspects of that, what am I really doing? Well, I'm starting out with the A minor chord, A, C, E, but I'm breaking it up. I've got the root, the A, in the left hand, in octaves, and then I've got the C and the E in the right hand, but I'm playing the C and the E together on top. I'm playing the E also on bottom, like that. And then, after that I'm just changing it from the A minor, and I'm not really thinking of chord analysis at this point. I'm just bringing the right hand down a half step. C to the B, the E to the E flat. Or, if I'm thinking of it as a chord analysis, then I could say E to the D sharp. I could say, A, D sharp is part of the B7 chord. What do I do next? Well, that's the E7 chord. But I'm putting the E in octaves on the left hand, and then I'm putting the D, instead of up on the top, I'm putting it in the middle. And then, what notes do I have left? The G sharp and the B. But I'm hitting the C. I'm augmenting it. E, G sharp, C, or technically B sharp, and D would be an augmented 7 chord. But I'm just hitting that. I'm hitting the D right in the middle, E in the left hand, D, and then the G sharp, C sharp, I'm just augmenting it for a second, just having that. I think I may have said C sharp, I meant B sharp, same as C. I'm just doing that for a second, for like an 8th note, and then going down to that B. It gives us some tension, and then some release. In fact, going from the CE to a B D sharp, that also builds up tension. Build up tension, release tension. And then what am I doing? Every other time that I do this, every other time, I do a walk up in the left hand. E, F sharp, G sharp, and then back to the A. Okay, oops. On a twisting dead end road, there. Okay, now I'm changing it to, instead of and repeating the same pattern, well, I know that I'm going to need a different chord. And a run down that's going to be that's going to be an E7, but I'm going to have the B in the bass. Remember, E7 is E, G sharp, B, and D. I'm going to have the B in the bass. So in order to get there, instead of I'm going E, G sharp, A, and then the B, that target note I want to land on in the left hand. And then, I've got the, instead of the E on the bottom, I've got it in the middle with the right hand. Bottom of the right hand, middle of the whole thing. Or, excuse me. Actually, I've got it almost at the top. Sorry. Yeah. So I've got the G sharp. So it would be E, G sharp, B, D. But I've got the G sharp right here. Got the B down here. I've got the D here. And then I've got the E on the top, but I start with the F. And then go down to the B. And then I change the inversion. It's still the E7 chord. Remember, E, G sharp, B, D. Well, I've got E, G sharp, B, but it bounces off of C and D. But I play them in different order. It's actually what I did between the A minor chords for the E7 in the intro. Remember, in the first part of the verse, right there. That's actually what I'm doing after. I'm just going back to what I did there. And guess what? Now I'm going back to what I did with the intro. So, on a twisting dead-end road. There's the intro pattern. And then there's that one deviation from it, then back to the intro pattern. So, in a run down the park she lay, as she shivered sick and cold. See, we're doing that same pattern. And then we do the same deviation from it. She looked out a small window that day. It was. And then we go into, we go into an A minor chord, an arpeggio, cross-handed in the different octaves, played as 16th notes. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. It starts. It hits the top of the arpeggio and plays that root in 4 octaves right at the beginning of the next measure. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1. And then that's a syncopated pattern. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and then 1 and 2. 1, 2 and. Sorry. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. It's a lot easier if I just. It's a lot easier to count if I just do. If I count all the 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and just keeping the same rhythm. I mean not the same rhythm, but keeping the beat as I'm singing helps it fit together. There was nothing to see but the blank wall next door and the branch of you. We've got another arpeggio. D minor. Branch of beautiful. But what about all that syncopated stuff? How do I know what to play for that? Well, there's the root, and then what we call the leading tone. It's a half step below that, the G sharp, and then the E there. That's the 5th of the A minor chord, and then I'm just going. So I did root, down a half step, and then down that's a major 3rd from G sharp to E to the 5th of the chord, and then I'm just going up a minor 3rd and doing the same pattern, going up a minor 3rd to G, and just like I did down a half step, down a major 3rd. Now when I go back up that minor 3rd, I go down a half step and a major 3rd, and then guess what I do? I go up a minor 3rd again and repeat, but this time instead of down a half step and then down a major 3rd, I go, in order to keep the right harmony, I go down a half step and down a 4th. Then I go up minor 3rd and down a major 2nd. So same pattern. So here's that pattern. Down a half step and then down a major 3rd. Then up a minor 3rd, do the same pattern. And then up a minor 3rd, do almost the same pattern, but overshoot by a half step instead of minor. I mean the major 3rd would be down to C, but there we go down to B. And then what were we going up by before? We were going up by a minor 3rd, right? So we still do that, but instead of down a half step, we do down a whole step, because puts us back into the A minor chord. Oops. And what I'm doing is quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note. And then comes a dotted quarter note if we were actually holding it out the whole time. But yeah. Eighth quarter, eighth quarter, eighth quarter, eighth quarter. And then yeah, eighth, and then it's like eighth, and use the rest of the. Use a quarter to move the hands. So that's like, if we count that eighth and the quarter that it takes to move the hands, that makes a dotted quarter. There's that D minor arpeggio, and again, it's in 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a, and then 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 1. There. Octaves. But this time, instead of all together, I do have an octave, a 2 octave instead of 1 octave gap between hands, because I guess maybe I subconsciously just wanted more of that bass sound. Oh, there. It's E suspended. E, A, B, but I'm doing so root, fourth and fifth, and then it resolves. That A changes to a G sharp. That means we're going to that E major. And then guess what? We do that walk up, F sharp, G sharp, and then we do the same thing, or we start to do the same thing, but it'll vary. Sorry. Here's where it varies. This time, what I did with the E suspended, E suspended, E major. I'm doing G suspended, switching quicker to G major. G suspended is G, C, D, and then G major is G, B, D. And then sorry, I do that same walk up in the left hand, but I'm doing E suspended and adding the 7, E suspended 7, E, A, D, E, A, B, D, and then I change that A to the G sharp, so it changes from an E suspended 7 to just E7. G7. Oops. And we'll stop there because the video has gone on long enough, and the chorus really does different things. So maybe that'll be for another time, Lord willing. Okay, so that was reverse engineering. The very last leaf. Alright. God bless. Lord willing, see you again soon. Have a musical day with Jesus.